Hello there, this is Sherry Hayes with MomDelights.com, and today I'm going to be reading to you from McGuffey's Fourth Eclectic Reader. We're going to do an introduction, and I'm going to do the first two lessons. I'm going to read them aloud to you and help you to understand some ways that you could use this with your children. So stay tuned. Okay, so this is McGuffey's Fourth Eclectic Reader, and this is the revised edition. Now, there is another set of McGuffeys that's currently in print, and it is the originals that were done in the 1830s. I choose to use these originals with the pictorial primer, the first reader, and the second reader, and then I go to McGuffey's Fourth Eclectic Reader. The reason being is that when you go into the third and fourth of these readers, I don't know, it kind of changes and it kind of makes leaps, and some of it is a little macabre. I'm just saying, for our times, I didn't find them as interesting. I think they was written during a time where there probably wasn't as great amount of literature for that age, except really serious stuff. And so I kind of think that this is a better bridge. And I'll show you some reasons why. So this is the Fourth Eclectic Reader. This was done, and I'll show you the original date this was done. It says copyright 1879 by Van Antwerp Rag & Company. Okay. So I think you'll find that some of these stories, they're a little more modern, but they're every bit as good. Okay. Let me show you. Here's the contents, okay? It says... now, it has an introductory matter, and this introductory matter, I hope you'll understand why they did this. Okay, during this time, we were experiencing in America a great influx of immigrants, as history will show. And a lot of these people came from overseas in different countries, and so what they were trying to do is trying to homogenize the pronunciation of English in our country so that everyone had an American accent. I don't know if that makes any sense. So they were taking people from Ireland and different European countries, and they were trying to teach them the proper ways. And also we had a lot of slang and stuff that had developed from backwoods, you know, all the pioneers and everything. So that's what this attempt is. So if you have these books, you can totally skip this part. And you won't need to use it because it's probably archaic compared to today. But, you know, you might learn some things. I mean, I'm not saying you couldn't do it, but you don't have to. Where I start is I just start with the stories, right? Now, you'll notice in this book that the illustrations are very nice, especially if you get a really good printing of this book. Now, I have a better printing of this book, and it's a collector's, right? And so these lines are a lot more crisp, and there's more white highlights. Now, these you can see have been facsimile to where they're not as crisp and clean, but they're still really gorgeous. They're engravings, and they're metal engravings. In the original McGuffey's, these are wood engravings, and so that's why they're kind of funky looking a little bit. But these are really crisp and nice, and they're very good. Okay, this is the first lesson, and so it has a lesson here, and as you'll notice, as usual, the paragraphs are numbered, which makes it easier if you want to assign some copy work. You can just say copy paragraph number 9. Now, originally, the reason these were numbered is because they would have students read aloud the different paragraphs, and it was easier to refer to a number than it would be, or read where are we at again? You know, I don't know. So that didn't work too well. Okay, so at the end, they don't really have a vocabulary list as we would think of it. They have definitions. Now, remember, at this time, most young people were learning, like on the frontier, they didn't have access to a dictionary, and so what McGuffey did is he put the dictionary in the book. So these words have all the diacritical marks, the syllabication, and they also have the definitions. So, definitions. In defining words, that meaning is given which is appropriate to them in the connection in which they are used. In other words, there might be other definitions of this word, but this word we're going to talk about according to what's needed for this story, right? And it says, so in this one we have entangled, which means twisted in or disordered, And then it shows the paragraph. See these numbers right here? Like it doesn't. Why do you start with number 4? It shows the paragraph where you find this word, which is really very useful. You go back to paragraph 4, and in here, let's see, entangled. There's the word right there. So that's what that's for. So your child will want to number it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but this will help them to find out which paragraph that word was found in, so they can find out where it's being used. And that's so good because you're getting context. Okay, and then here's exercises, here's questions. What is the subject of this lesson? Why was John discouraged in his attempts to fly his kite? What did his aunt say to him? What may we learn from this? What should be our motto if we expect to be successful? So those are all good, really good questions. Remember, if you recall, I don't know if you know this, but I have a series of books called the Lesson Book. And you can use these books to go through these lessons, and it makes it simpler on you, so that at this point your child should be reading on his or her own. But and so you can just assign this lesson and have them do have them do the exercises in the lesson book, or I also have free lesson pages on my blog, momdelights.com, where you can just print them out and have them follow that. But basically, what we want to incorporate in order to take the greatest advantage of these lessons is we want to do some copy work, we want to do some dictation, and some narration. Now, the copy work for my children has been, they will copy these words that were in the definitions, and then they will write some sentences about that, and that's all in my lesson pages and lesson book. And then they will also copy one paragraph from this. Now, sometimes if I sense that they're choosing like the one sentence paragraphs, I will pick a paragraph that concentrates on something that I think they need practice in, such as this paragraph has quotations in it. And so I'm thinking, well, they probably need practice in that. So I'm going to have them copy paragraph 5. So I'll write the 5 there on their lesson. And then they will be doing a dictation from that same paragraph. So it's very important that we go over and they understand. If, I'll have them check their work, and if they messed up, then I'll say, well, what are these, and how do we use them? I'll go over some basic rules for it, so that when they do the dictation, then they're well acquainted with this, right? And so then the narration part then would be that we're going to take this story that we've read and we're going to write it, and also there are places to draw it, okay? But we're going to either write it briefly or draw it according to one's ability. Sometimes if you have a person who's really reluctant at writing, they could just draw about it and then talk about it with you, and that would be just fine. Or you could use these questions, that would be fine too. Now let me read this aloud. Now the next one, I'll just read these aloud after I finish. Okay, the next one is going to be try again. This is a very important poem, and you may want to have your child write the entire poem simply because it's something that should be memorized. It's something that you could have your child memorize instead of doing a narration. Just have them memorize it, or maybe instead of copy work, they could memorize it. I mean, memorization is very important to development. Now, let me read these 2 things to you. And you can go like wash your dishes, whatever you want to do, and I'll read to you. Okay. 1, perseverance. Will you give my kite a lift? Said my little nephew to his sister. After trying in vain to make it fly by dragging it along the ground, Lucy very kindly took it up and threw it into the air, but her brother neglecting to run off at the same moment, the kite fell down again. "Oh, now how awkward you are," said the little fellow. "It was your fault entirely," answered his sister. "Try again, children," said I. Lucy once more took up the kite, but now John was in too great a hurry. He ran off so suddenly that he twitched the kite out of her hand, and it fell flat as before. "Well, who is to blame now?" asked Lucy. "Try again," said I. They did, and with more care. But a side wind coming suddenly as Lucy let go the kite, it was blown against some shrubs, and the tail became entangled in a moment, leaving the poor kite hanging with its head downward. "There, there," exclaimed John. "That comes of your throwing it all to one side." "As if I could make the wind blow straight," said Lucy. In the meantime, I went to the kite's assistance, and having it disengaged the long tail, I rolled it up, saying, "Come, children, there are too many trees here. Let us find a more open space, and then try again." We presently found a nice grass plot, at one side of which I took my stand, and all things being prepared, I tossed the kite up just as little John ran off. It rose with all the dignity of a balloon and promised a lofty flight, but John, delighted to find it pulling so hard at the string, stopped short to look upward and admire. The string slackened, the kite wavered, and the wind, not being very favorable, down came the kite to the grass. "Oh, John, you should not have stopped," said I. "However, try again." "I won't try any more," replied he, rather sullenly. "It is of no use, you see. The kite won't fly, and I don't want to be plagued with it any longer." "Oh, fie, my little man. Would you give up the sport after all the pains we have taken to make it and to fly the kite? A few disappointments ought not to discourage us. Come, I have wound up your string, and now try again." And he did try, and succeeded, for the kite was carried upward on the breeze as lightly as a feather. And when the string was all out, John stood in great delight, holding fast the stick and gazing on the kite, which now seemed like a little white speck in the blue sky. "Look, look, Aunt, how high it flies, and it pulls like a team of horses, so that I can hardly hold it. I wish I had a mile of string. I am sure it would go to the end of it." After enjoying the sight as long as he pleased, little John proceeded to roll up the string slowly, and when the kite fell, he took it up with great glee, saying that it was not at all hurt, and that it had behaved very well. "Shall we come out tomorrow, Aunt, after lessons, and try again?" "I have no objection, my dear, if the weather is fine. And now, as we walk home, tell me what you have learned from your morning sport." "I have learned to fly my kite properly." "You may thank Aunt for it, brother," said Lucy, "for you would have given it up long ago if she had not persuaded you to try again." "Yes, dear children, I wish to teach you the value of perseverance, even when nothing more depends upon it than the flying of a kite. Whenever you fail in your attempts to do any good thing, let your motto be, 'Try again.'" So you can see with this that it's going to dovetail nicely into the poem we're going to read. Okay, so also remember that this is written in diction that we used years ago. And why is this important for today? Because if your child can read and understand this kind of writing, they can read anything. They will not be dependent on the simplification of our language that we're experiencing now. They'll be able to read old stuff and get a lot out of it. They will not be handicapped. They will be able. So this is simple in some ways and complicated. The sentence structure is a lot longer than what we're used to, okay? And it's a little more complicated, but it's worth it. It's worth it, okay? Your kids will be so blessed. All right, so try again. "'Tis a lesson you should heed. Try again. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Then your courage should appear, for if you will persevere, you will conquer, never fear. Try again. Once or twice, though you should fail, try again. If you would at last prevail, try again. If we strive, 'tis no disgrace, though we do not win the race. What should you do in the case? Try again. If you find your task is hard, try again. Time will bring you your reward. Try again. All that other folks can do, why, with patience, should not you? Only keep this rule in view. Try again. So isn't that beautiful? Don't you love that? And it's going to be so important to your kids. I think the reason they put this at the beginning of the fourth reader is that some kids still struggle. They still struggle with reading certain things or with writing or whatever. And so what they wanted to instill in the learner is that you've got to keep going, even if it's hard. And don't we need this in this day? Also, I want you to notice that they were going to go out after lessons. That indicates that they probably were being homeschooled. Isn't that interesting? It was like a normal thing. And also, another thing, let's see, I noticed something else here. Okay. Also notice that it was the aunt teaching the children and helping them. So families back then, they didn't just expect, like, if something happened to the mother or the mother was ill or whatever, the aunt would come in and help. What's wrong with that? Why can't we bind together more as families in these days and do what's necessary to help our family? It's just an amazing, we can have this revolution through homeschooling. We can take things back that were taken from us, and we can get back to the things that God ordained that are supposed to be a blessing. Okay, so anyway, I hope you like this. Next time we will try to do lessons 3 through 7, and that'll give you even a better idea of how to use this book. And if you, your kids are going to be reading this themselves. But if you listen to me reading these things to you while, like, you're doing your dishes or whatever, then when they do their lessons, you'll be familiar with what they're doing. So it'll help you, I hope. I hope it sets you free a little bit. Okay, you have a wonderful day. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more of these videos. Bye-bye.